Hello, everyone. A word of warm welcome. Very delighted to be with all of you. I thought today I would share some general reflections on what's happening around us all over the world, with particular reference to the most unfortunate state of affairs between Ukraine and Russia, the Russian Federation. Now, what makes me think in particular of this development is the fact that both Russia and Ukraine are very deeply religious. The Orthodox tradition, Christian Orthodox tradition, is particularly strong in this region, in spite of the fact that both countries or people in both countries share the same religion. Not only the same religion, but the same tradition within the same religion. That's as close as you can get. They are cutting each other's throat. At the same time, you read any book on religion, history of religion, theology, which deals with this aspect of life and history, you will certainly come across the statement that religion is the principal means we have to hold under control or hold in leash the dangerous, destructive, violent tendencies in human nature. So, presumably, where religion thrives, or where religion exercises its influence, there should be no outbreak of violence. Peace should prevail. But clearly, that's not what we see in the history of religions, and that's certainly not what we see in this region, which I said at the beginning, is inhabited by people who are deeply religious. How are we to make sense of this? Now, India is, of course, a deeply religious or deeply spiritual country. In fact, the West think of the East as spiritual, the spiritual East. And within the spiritual East, seen from the Western point of view, India holds a very hallowed place. That's the reason why there are people from other Western countries to India, including the Beatles who came here, and psychologists like Carl Jung was very deeply impressed. Writers, Indologists like what's that? Oh, I forget this name. Old age. Anyway, um, uh, Edwin Arnold's The Light of Asia, which is a long poem on Buddha and the glory of Buddhism, etc. India has always fascinated the West. Even in India, we find the reality of a great deal of violence very happily coexisting with religiosity. And in recent times, of course, we see this in the form of communal violence. There have been more than 1,000, no, sorry, there have been about 12,000 episodes, minor or major, of communal riots since India attained independence. This is the reality. How does this happen? Now, that's what I'm trying to explain. Now, let me come to the heart of the matter. And this is precisely what I want to say. I have tried to understand the essence of religion, and I clearly understand this as a way in which the human person, the mind, the soul of human beings, try and relate to something beyond the human, which the human agency cannot control, cannot even understand adequately. But this is a dynamic reality in the scheme of things. Therefore, man cannot wish it away. cannot pretend that it doesn't exist. So that's something which is mysterious, which is fascinating, which is tremendous, and which cannot be dodged. How does one factor that into one's life and life strategies? This is really the heart of the matter. Now, the technical word for this is numinosum. Numinosum, which pertains to the awareness of this very mysterious dynamic reality of strange powers beyond the control of man, at the same time, powers that are very critically relevant, or an order of reality which is critically relevant to human life. So, that awareness is supposed to direct, control, and shape human life in terms of leading a meaningful life upon planet Earth. From this point of view, it is assumed that human life has purpose, meaning, and purpose. It is certainly possible to hold the view that human life is merely an accident, a chance event on planet Earth, and therefore ideas like purpose and meaning, etc., are rather illusory. This is something that the old-fashioned view of life entertained. It's no longer valid. That view certainly exists, but certainly that view is outside the pale of the religious. I'm now talking strictly of the religious view, the religious worldview. So, if that essential religious perception had held the ground, and wherever that held the ground, whenever it did, it certainly exercised a controlling influence on human attitudes, agendas, enterprises. That sense of something far beyond human control, that mysterious realm of power and possibilities, which man cannot wish away, served as a kind of balancing influence on human outlook and enterprises in the world. It served the purpose in secular language of checks and balances, like democracy is supposedly constructed on checks and balances, the doctrine of the separation of powers, etc. Now, I do not doubt even for a moment that if that awareness and that sense of connectedness to this mysterious realm of dynamic powers and possibilities is real and sincere in the human mind and in the human collectivities, there will be peace. Because then human beings realize the need to refine oneself, to be in harmony with that realm of possibilities and realities. Now, the moment you blot it, what happens? There's nothing here to serve as checks and balances, and human beings can then run amok, go berserk. Now, what happened to religion then? I suppose a very unfortunate, sad shift happened. This mysterious dimension of religion, which is at the core of spirituality as against administratively organized religion, the religious establishment, the religious establishment cut itself off from that mysterious other dynamic dimension and embraced the illusion that it was autonomous, a law unto itself, and that it has to be guided at best or maximum by the laws, the rules, regulations, customs devised by human beings. And the canard was created that these man made rules and laws had divine sanction. How these arrangements acquired divine sanctions, nobody will tell you. You're required to accept it as a matter of faith, the given. In the process, what happened was the source and origin of all this has been denied, deleted. So that transcendental, supernatural other, which could have served as checks and balances, was completely removed. The equilibrium, the existential spiritual equilibrium, was disturbed, in fact, destroyed. And human beings are now free to do what they want. And so we reach a situation in which actually might is right, though we are told time and again, day in and day out, that we have come a long way from might is right. If you want to know the truth, all you have to do is to listen to Putin, the president of the Russian Federation. What is he saying? I have the right to annex these and these and these territories of Ukraine because I have power. I had the right in 2014 to annex Crimea because I had power. What is ruling the world? Justice or might? You tell me. So, what happens when this other dimension that I have been referring to as numinosum is deleted from man's view of life and the world? The eruption of this kind of unbridled display of human power and the glory of human might becomes the sole determinant of human affairs in the world. At that point, something else happens. And that's what you find both in Ukraine and in the Russian Federation. What happens is the religious authority, which supposedly is connected to the numinosum, that dynamic, mysterious other, which is beyond human agendas, partisan human agendas in this world. The religious authority, which claims to be a remnant, a deposit, as it were, of that other, gets happily co opted into the political military regime. It becomes a handmaiden to power play. So you have, for example, the head of the Russian Orthodox Church eulogizing Putin, saying that he's a miracle of God. Miracle of God. Why? Because Putin has tremendous power, awesome power. So rather than exercise a controlling, refining, humanizing influence on power, the religious establishment comes down to the level of playing the role of a quarter to the secular king. And what is worse, desecrates the resources of the numinosum, that dynamic, mysterious, supernatural other, all that constitutes the spiritual inheritance of humankind, desecrates that and makes it an appendage to the political military regime. So then what happens? That which should have controlled and refined the exercise of power serves now as a means of legitimizing the most brutal use of power. So you ask the head of the Russian Orthodox Church whether he should or shouldn't be playing a spiritual role and speaking truth to centers of power, he would say, not at all. Putin is God's miracle upon the earth. Ask the head of the Orthodox Church in Ukraine, he would say now that Volodymyr Zelensky is God's miracle on the earth. Now, we are left wondering which God is being talked about, the Russian God or the Ukraine God. Which God are we to worship? So, my dear friends, this is the kind of utter disarray, disorientation, and desecration to which we have reached. And it's a pathetic state. When politics co-opts religion, religion gets raped, its inner soul is corrupted and corroded, and religion suffers very serious disfigurement, desecration, and disorientation in the process. But for a while, it might seem that it is a mighty stroke on behalf of a particular religion to have the state power, brutal state power, on its side. But these gains prove in a very short span of time to be a great liability and a curse. That is the lesson that I learned from history, and particularly when I regard the history of Christianity. Whether or not it applies to other contexts, it's for my viewers to decide. This is not legitimizing brutal secular enterprises, creating a trail of blood, cruelty, and human suffering, unspeakable human suffering, is not the way any religion should profit. It can never work to the glory and benefit of a religion. Never mind which context, which country, which religion, which ruler. Ultimately, the shaping element in religion is God, and the most indispensable, irreducible duty of a religious community is to embody the nature of God, which is love, truth, justice, compassion, and caring culture. And whatever is happening now, which is legitimized through religion, particularly in Ukraine and Russia, is exactly the opposite of that, which is a great pity. I wonder how embarrassed God is seeing all this. I'm sure that if there is a God, God must be shedding cosmic tears. It may not be an easy thing from God, but easy thing for God, whose heart we assume is full of compassion, to see little children blown to smithereens by the destructive power of nations, or the tears of widows flooding the land, or a people terrorized out of their senses, countries laid waste, homes devastated, and the very logic of life threatened. And the death dance continues, being covered by this miasma of misguided euphoria. One can only pray that this madness would end and end very soon. Very soon. Not a moment later than is necessary. And may that moment be now, not tomorrow.